Let's take a look at the concept of exchange rates. And exchange rates represent the price of one currency in terms of another. So you can think of a foreign currency as a good that you're actually purchasing. So up here I have a little table in matrix form of exchange rates. And across the top, US dollars, British pound sterling, Canadian dollars, euros, and Australian dollars. And if you go down the rows, it's dollars. They just use the flag here. Dollars, pound sterling, Canadian dollars, euros, and Australian dollars. You'll notice across the diagonal, these are all equal to 1. Because it takes 1 US dollar to buy 1 US dollar. It takes 1 pound sterling to buy 1 pound sterling. So across the diagonal, they're all equal to 1. In the off-diagonal spaces, you have numbers. So let's look at the dollar-pound sterling exchange rate. Now there are two ways you can see this. You can see it here, which is dollars per pound, or here you can see pounds per dollar. And those are the two ways to quote. There's something called direct quote, which is how many units of the domestic currency does it take to buy 1 unit of the foreign currency. And then there's indirect quote, which is how many units of the foreign currency does it take to buy 1 unit of the domestic currency. And it depends on which side you happen to be sitting on. If you happen to be in the US, the number of dollars it takes to buy 1 pound sterling is a direct quote. But that's an indirect quote if you happen to be in London, because the foreign currency is dollars, okay, and the domestic currency is pound sterling. So let's take a look at some of these numbers. Here it takes 1.55575 US dollars to buy 1 pound sterling. Okay, so a little more than $1.55, about $1.56 US to buy 1 pound sterling. All right, so let's write that down. So we have this exchange rate here where it takes 1.55575 US dollars to buy 1 pound sterling, 1 British pound. Now, suppose you wanted to convert this to how many pounds does it take to buy 1 US dollar? Well, we can do that by dividing both sides by 1.55575. Let me divide this by 1.55575. Right, this cancels, and this is going to be equal to 1 divided by 1.55575, and we get 0.6427 if we round off 8, which is exactly what we get in the other part of the table, right? The indirect quote for the pound sterling. So this is going to be equal to 0.64278. And you can check it out for yourself. If you took 1 and divided it by 0.98078, you should get 1.01960 Canadian dollars to buy 1 US dollar. Okay? So you can figure out these exchange rates the same way. It takes $1.32 to buy a euro, which means that it takes 0.75665 euros to buy 1 US dollar. So you can do that for yourself. Now, why do we care about exchange rates? We care about exchange rates because sometimes we want to buy goods and services from other countries, or perhaps we want to travel overseas and we want to buy their goods and services, or we want to stay in their hotels, eat in their restaurants, and we want to know how much it costs us in terms of our currency. So let's suppose a coat cost 200 pounds sterling. What's that going to cost us in the US? Okay, in US dollars. Okay, so I happen to be over in London and I see a coat I like and it costs 200 pounds sterling. Now I got to be careful. I can't look and say, oh, 200, that's a good deal. It's not $200, it's 200 pounds sterling. It takes me a little more than $1.55 to buy 1 pound. So in order to figure out how many dollars this is going to cost me, I have to convert dollars to pounds. So in order to get a pound, I have to spend 1.55575 US dollars to buy a pound. I have to convert 200 of those. So if I multiply by 1.55575, let's see what the cost is. The cost is going to be equal to 200 times 1.55575. The coat's going to cost me $311.15. So that coat that cost 200 pounds in London cost me in US dollars $311.15. Is it still a good deal? Maybe. All right. What happens when exchange rates change? Exchange rates change quite a bit. Okay, or countries can enact policies that cause them to change. But let's suppose that the exchange rate changes so that now instead of $1.55575 to buy a pound sterling, let's say it's $2 to buy 1 pound sterling. Okay, in this case, the pound has appreciated, or we could say the dollar depreciated. It now takes more dollars to buy 1 pound sterling, and if we wanted to convert this to how many pounds does it take to buy 1 US dollar, we could divide both sides by 2, right? So we would get one over here, we would get 1 US dollar equals 0.5 pounds. Well, how does that affect what things cost? Well, how much does the coat cost now? Cost of the coat, okay, say it still costs 200 pounds sterling. So it costs let me just fix that. It cost, do that again. It costs 200 pounds, right? All right, so it's 200 pounds times the exchange rate, which is $2 per pound. And so now it's going to cost me $400. So you can see that when the pound appreciated or the dollar depreciated, it became more expensive for a U.S. resident to buy that. So what's going to happen if these exchange rates hold? Well, U.S. residents are going to import less British goods because they're going to be more expensive. On the other hand, let's say a similar coat, a coat in the U.S., coat in the U.S. cost $311.15. So before, I'm picking this number intentionally. So the cost of a coat in the U.S. is $311.15. The cost of a coat in Great Britain is 200 pounds. At this exchange rate, they're the same. They cost the same. So a U.S. resident might be indifferent between buying the two. But now, if these are similar coats, if I want to get that British coat, okay, that coat from London, it costs $400. The U.S. coat only costs $311.15. So we're going to import less goods from Great Britain, and we're going to buy more of our own domestic goods. Okay, how about for the British person? Okay, suppose that the cost of the coat is still 200 pounds sterling in London. what is the $311.15 coat cost? Okay, so the cost of the coat is $311.15, okay, times the exchange rate, which is 50 cents, I'm sorry, 50.5 pounds to buy $1 US. So let's multiply that by 0.50 pounds. And we get that the coat is going to cost that person in Great Britain 155.575 pounds sterling. So instead of it costing 200 pounds, they can get the U.S. coat for 155.575 pounds. So what's going to happen? U.S. residents are going to import less British goods, but we're going to export more goods to Great Britain because there's going to be great demand. I mean, if I'm a British resident, am I going to pay $200, 200 pounds for a coat? Or do I want to buy a similar coat for 155? Okay, I want to buy the U.S. coat that's imported. So if the exchange rate, if the dollar depreciates, that's good for U.S. exports, but bad, but will reduce U.S. imports. Okay, the reverse is also true. In Great Britain, if the pound has appreciated, they will tend to import more, but export less. So exchange rates are very important in terms of determining things like trade balance. Okay, oftentimes you'll hear the U.S. auto industry complaining that the dollar is too strong. That is, that it takes too few dollars to buy yen, or too few dollars to buy pound sterling. The dollar's very strong. It has a lot of value, so a small amount of dollars buys a lot of the foreign currency. But that makes our exports very expensive to foreigners. It makes it hard for us to sell cars in other countries. It also makes it enticing for U.S. residents to buy foreign cars because they're cheaper here. Okay, when exchange rates change as well, okay, when the dollar, in this case, when it's 1 pound sterling to 2 U.S. dollars, we can say that the pound is strong. It encourages British residents to buy U.S. goods. It also encourages British residents to come to the United States for vacation because it's cheaper here. Okay, staying in a hotel is cheap because it doesn't take as many pounds sterling, right? It only takes 0.5 pounds sterling to buy a U.S. dollar, as opposed to 0.64278, which we did from the previous example. So it makes it cheap for British residents to come to the United States for vacation, but it makes it expensive for U.S. residents to go to Great Britain for vacation. So, exchange rates can be very important to trade balances, to the tourist industry. So they're quite critical, and they can also be quite confusing as well. But I hope this tutorial helped at least a bit.